I was wondering why you snaked over here. I thought I was in trouble.
No, not at all.
I thought.
Really? That's why?
Yeah, I don't know. It's strange.
Oh, no, that's too funny. I guess we can start all of this out awkward because I already called you sir when we first met.
That is true. I mean, I understand that. I do the same thing.
See, I wasn't sure because when you work with somebody who has an alias, you know, if I'm gonna call you CM,
right,
Mr. Punk. I know now with movies, you know, you wanted Phil Brooks. So do you? I guess you introduce yourself as Phil from now on, even though everyone knows you as CM Punk.
Yeah, but I've never introduced myself as Punk, just because that sounds so.
Well, I'm being silly there.
Strange, right? And then there's always an explanation. People be like, "Wait, what? Huh? Punk?" I mean, yeah, I'm a wrestler.
And what's also awkward about this, because I've been kind of hanging out with you for 2 hours.
Yeah,
as you've been doing these radio.
You're screwed with
interviews.
Questions, right?
I know. I've got to hear all the questions already. So I'm like, shit. Is there any left? But of course there is, because it's not only I'm just a fan of you and your wrestling work, but I've been so excited to hear how much of a horror fan that you are.
Let's talk about Star Wars.
I've never seen Star Wars.
What?
I know.
What?
I've seen Spaceballs like 100 times. Does that count?
When I saw Spaceballs in the theater when I was a kid, I was pissed.
Oh, yeah?
I was pissed. That's how much of a Star Wars fan I was. I was like, they're making fun of Star Wars?
Well, I'm Jewish and I like the Jewish humor. So one of these days, I don't know. I'll see you one of these days. I'm behind the times.
All right.
But as far as horror, I've already learned from other radio interviews that you've done that Halloween is your favorite of all time.
Yeah, easily.
But I'm curious, what was the first horror movie that got you into the genre? Because I'm huge, and I remember for me, it was probably Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
See, I wish I had such a distinct memory of like what the first horror movie I saw was, because I grew up in Chicago, so there was Svengoolie, who would play monster movies on Sundays and Saturdays and stuff like that. And I had an uncle who would show me movies like Animal House when I was like 7 years old.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Stuff like that. I remember seeing American Werewolf in London.
Okay.
And knowing, like, I should not be watching this movie, but that's the juice, right? You're a kid and you're like, hell yeah, I'm going to watch these movies I know I'm not supposed to watch. And I think American Werewolf in London, for how old I was like great gateway horror movie, you know, because it's a comedy, but it's a horror movie, and they hit you over the head with this gore out of nowhere sometimes. And like, even to this day, 2019, the transformation scenes in that movie are crazy. You know, this is how you learn about Rick Baker. And then you see Summer School with Mark Harmon, and there's two characters in Summer School that are like horror nuts. You know what I mean? So I was that little kid that was making my own fake blood, and
nice.
Yeah, that's who I was when I was a little kid. I was into everything that would get me beat up at that age that is now super cool in the multi-million-dollar industry.
I did the same thing too. I remember I put blood all over, to tie both things in together, blood all over my Macho Man wrestling buddy.
Nice.
And my mom thought something is wrong with me.
Yeah, I got the same thing. Yeah, my mom was like, "Oh, you're going to be a serial killer." And I was like, "Well, is that so bad?"
How did you prepare for this role? Because you're obviously a horror freak. Was there any movie you watched or any certain character, like a Bruce Campbell? Because this has an Evil Dead vibe mixed in with Amityville Horror. So how did you prepare?
I didn't know how to prepare. I didn't know what I should or should not do. So I kind of didn't do anything. I think a lifetime of acting in the ring and being such a horror movie fan helped me prepare the most, you know. And then obviously I would have conversations with Travis Stevens about what he was looking for. And I think it was less about the character to me and more about the overall message of the movie, about, you know, maybe try to be a better person, you know. And I've only said this in one other interview, and I don't even think Travis knew this. I looked at the character of Don as somebody who, you know, he's not your typical bad guy. He's not on the screen purposely doing like all these horrible things. He's not Hans Gruber from Die Hard. You know what I mean? He's not like this nefarious, wringing his hands like, you know, bad guy. He's a guy who does bad things. And I look at another John Carpenter movie, one of my favorites, Big Trouble in Little China, and you look at the quote-unquote hero of that movie is supposed to be Jack Burton, but Jack Burton is absolutely not the hero of that movie. Jack Burton is the sidekick, and like that's the genius, and that's almost the joke of that movie. And it's what a lot of people didn't get when that movie came out. They're like, we don't get it. This guy's not the hero, but he's the lead, you know, but Yang's the hero. You know, Burton just kind of like fails and forward like the whole time. So I took that aspect of the character Jack Burton and I kind of put that into the character of Don with a little bit more of a dark slant.
Right on. I liked an answer you gave in a previous interview, and I feel the same way about why horror is my favorite genre. It's the special effects, because so much of CGI, it's made me enjoy movies less.
Yes.
So I will purposely go back and watch 80s horror. It doesn't matter how bad. So when you do a remake, which is coming up, by the way, of Rabid, the first one was great, the special with the special effects and all the blood and everything. Are you excited to? I don't know. Do you want to be true to the original and stick with that, or are you kind of will you embrace CGI if it calls for it?
I'll embrace CGI if it calls for it, but this is a Stan Lee quote, and I love this quote because his quote was in reference to digital comic books. You know, everybody's got an iPod or a tablet or whatever it is nowadays, and you can download an app and you can read comic books. And a lot of the editors at Marvel will always send me links to comic books when I'm writing stuff, and I read them on my phone or I read them on my iPad. And the Stan Lee quote is, "I like looking at boobs in a magazine, but I'd much rather have them in my hand." So I relate that to practical effects. You know,
I love it.
If you can see it and you can feel it,
yeah,
it's just better. CGI, I feel when I go to see movies in the theater, CGI is brilliant, but the rewatch value is lessened because when you watch it at home, you don't have that technology of a certain projector and a certain, you know, millimeter and screen and like all this stuff. And like the CGI to me, watching it on Blu-ray or whatever doesn't really hold up, but practical effects always will. That's why things like John Carpenter's The Thing, American Werewolf in London, those always hold up.
Right on. Last question for you. I don't know if you noticed the name of my podcast. I do a 6 degrees of, I'm sure you're familiar with the game 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yes.
So I do 6 degrees of GNR Bacon.
Rose? Okay.
Guns N' Roses Bacon.
Okay.
So I try to find any connection between my guest, whether it's obvious or not, to Guns N' Roses. So
this is going to be an easy one. So
you apparently went to a GNR show, unless you tell me another one, in 2011 with Domino, a former wrestler as well.
Yes.
So I was wondering if you can tell me about that experience, seeing Guns N' Roses or perhaps your fandom.
Yeah, so my buddy Cliff Domino, he's buddies with Bumblefoot, right?
Yeah.
And this is before Axl and Slash got together, so this is still like DJ Ashba, Bumblefoot, and all them. And you know, Bumblefoot invited us to the show at the Allstate Arena in Chicago, which is, to me, it'll always be the Rosemont Horizon. But anyway, you know, he invited us to the show, so we showed up, and we're backstage. And it's just wild to see all the Axl Rose stuff unfold, because you always hear the stories about Axl Rose, but to see it take place, you know, I can't remember how late they started that night, but it was at least an hour plus. And all the other band members were totally chill, because obviously this is old hat for them. They weren't like, geez, where's Axl? Stressed out. It was just like, you just got to wait and you got to chill until Axl shows up. And apparently they played in Detroit the night before. I think the story I heard after the fact was that, I don't know, Axl just didn't feel like getting on whatever plane he needed to get on, so he waited to the last minute. And I think he might have taken a helicopter from Detroit to Chicago, which is pretty gangster. And I was out in the hallway, and I was just like sitting there, and literally, like, all of a sudden it started happening, where Axl just literally like walked in the door, and he walked straight in the door and straight to the stage. So like as he was walking, everybody was screaming, "Axl's here, let's go," you know what I mean? And the band had to like run out and be in position, and like he literally walked in the door, walked right on the stage, and just started the show. It was wild.
Very wrestling kind of entrance.
Yeah. Yeah, I for sure was that guy. So I understand.
Right on. Well, I know I'm also working, not just doing the interviews. So
I know, you're killing it, man. You're killing it.
So hopefully we can do this again, talk more about horror and music.
I feel like I could talk to you for hours and hours. So
awesome.
hopefully we'll do that in the future.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.